It was a day etched into memory, one where the past came alive amidst the bustling energy of the historical fencing festival in our small town. Curiosity led me to immerse myself in this vibrant event, despite my lack of prior participation in such affairs. As I stepped onto the festival grounds, I was immediately captivated by the kaleidoscope of costumes and the palpable aura of bygone eras. Among the throng of participants, one figure stood out with unparalleled grace and skill: Emily Brown. Wow, I found myself whispering as I watched her deftly maneuver her foil, her movements fluid and precise. Isn't she something? A voice beside me remarked, and I turned to see a fellow spectator nodding in agreement. Yeah, she's incredible, I replied, unable to tear my gaze away from Emily's mesmerizing performance. As the day progressed, I found myself drawn closer to Emily's orbit, unable to tear my gaze away from her remarkable displays of mastery. Eventually, as the main competitions drew to a close, I mustered the courage to approach her and offer my heartfelt congratulations on her splendid performance. Hi, I'm David, I began, extending my hand with a friendly smile. I just wanted to say, you were amazing out there. Emily's eyes sparkled with a mix of surprise and gratitude as she accepted my handshake. Thank you, David. It's always great to meet fellow enthusiasts. Are you a fencer yourself? Not exactly, I admitted with a sheepish grin, but watching you today has inspired me to give it a try. What began as a simple exchange of pleasantries swiftly evolved into a spirited conversation about fencing, history, and our shared passion for the sport. With each passing moment, our connection deepened, revealing common interests and values that ignited a spark between us. Before parting ways, I extended an invitation for Emily to join me in the next competition, to which she responded with a radiant smile and enthusiastic agreement. We spent the remainder of the day together, discussing tactics and honing our skills side by side in the arena. With every passing hour, I found myself falling more deeply under Emily's spell, captivated not only by her physical prowess, but also by the depth of her intellect and the sincerity of her character. As the festival drew to a close, I realized with a jolt that I was unwilling to let Emily slip through my fingers. Exchanging contact information, we made plans to meet after the festivities, eager to continue our acquaintance beyond the confines of the event. The days following the historical fencing festival were filled with anticipation as I eagerly awaited my reunion with Emily. Our initial encounter had left an indelible impression on me, and I found myself counting down the hours until we could meet again. When the appointed day arrived, I made my way to the quaint cafe where we had agreed to reconvene. As I entered, my heart skipped a beat at the sight of Emily waiting for me, her smile lighting up the room. David, it's so good to see you again, she greeted me warmly, rising from her seat to embrace me in a friendly hug. The pleasure's all mine, I replied, returning her embrace with equal enthusiasm. I've been looking forward to this. Over cups of steaming coffee, we delved into conversation once more, picking up where we had left off at the festival. Our discussion ranged from the intricacies of fencing techniques to our favorite historical eras, each revelation deepening our connection. It's refreshing to meet someone who shares my passion for both history and fencing, Emily remarked, her eyes alight with excitement. I couldn't agree more, I replied, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. I feel like I've found a kindred spirit in you. As the hours slipped by unnoticed, it became clear that our meeting was more than just a chance encounter. It was the beginning of a meaningful friendship. With each shared anecdote and shared laugh, I felt myself drawn closer to Emily, grateful for the bond that was forming between us. Before parting ways, we made plans to meet again soon, eager to continue exploring our shared interests and getting to know each other better. As I walked away from the cafe, my heart was filled with a sense of contentment unlike any I had ever known. Little did I realize then that this was just the beginning of a journey that would lead me to discover the true depth of my feelings for Emily and the transformative power of love. The days turned into weeks, and my encounters with Emily became the highlight of my existence. Each meeting brought us closer together, forging a bond that transcended mere friendship. One crisp autumn afternoon, Emily suggested a stroll through the town's historic district, where we could admire the architectural marvels and immerse ourselves in the rich tapestry of the past. As we wandered through the cobblestone streets, Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement, as she pointed out various landmarks and shared intriguing historical tidbits. "Did you know that this building dates back to the early 18th century?" she remarked, gesturing towards a stately brick edifice. "It's rumored to be haunted by the ghost of a former resident." I chuckled at her enthusiasm, thoroughly engrossed in her storytelling. "I had no idea. You certainly have a knack for bringing history to life, Emily." Her cheeks flushed with pleasure at the compliment, and she flashed me a grateful smile. "Thank you, David. I've always had a passion for uncovering the stories behind the buildings and artifacts that surround us." As we continued our exploration, our conversation flowed effortlessly from one topic to the next, weaving together threads of history, literature, and personal anecdotes. Before long, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the landscape. Seizing the moment, I found myself overcome with an irresistible urge to share my true feelings with Emily. "Emily, there's something I've been meaning to tell you," I began, my heart pounding in my chest. "Ever since the day we met at the fencing festival, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." Emily's gaze softened, and she reached out to gently squeeze my hand. "David, I feel the same way. You've brought so much joy and excitement into my life, and I'm grateful for every moment we've spent together." Encouraged by her response, I took a deep breath and let the words spill forth from my heart. "Emily, I've come to realize that you mean more to me than I ever thought possible. I care for you deeply, and I can't imagine my life without you in it." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she listened to my confession, her expression a mixture of surprise and tenderness. "David, I feel the same way," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never expected to find love at a fencing festival, but meeting you has been the greatest gift of all." With those words, we sealed our newfound connection with a tender embrace, the weight of our shared emotions enveloping us in a warm cocoon of love. As we stood there, bathed in the soft light of the setting sun, I knew in my heart that this was just the beginning of a beautiful journey with Emily by my side. With a gentle touch, I cupped her face in my hands, drawing her closer until our lips met in a soft, lingering kiss. In that moment, time seemed to stand still as the world faded away, leaving only the two of us and the sweet promise of our love. As the weight of our uncertainties began to lift, a newfound sense of clarity emerged between us. Emily's unwavering love and support anchored me, grounding me in the present moment and banishing my fears of an uncertain future. With a hesitant but determined resolve, I broached the subject that had been weighing on my mind for weeks. "Emily, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately," I began, my voice steady despite the nervous fluttering in my chest. "And I can't shake this feeling that we're meant to be together, no matter what obstacles we may face." Emily's eyes widened in surprise, her gaze searching mine for signs of hesitation. "What are you saying, David?" Taking a deep breath, I plunged ahead, my words tumbling out in a rush of emotion. "I'm saying that I want us to be together, Emily, completely and unreservedly. And I know this might be a lot to ask, but I want you to come live with me." The air seemed to crackle with tension as I waited for Emily's response, my heart pounding in my chest. Would she see my proposal as an act of reckless impulsivity, or as a sincere expression of my commitment to our relationship? For a long moment, Emily was silent, her expression inscrutable. Then slowly a smile spread across her face, illuminating her features with a radiant warmth. "David, I would love nothing more than to come live with you," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I've dreamed of building a life with you, of waking up next to you every morning and falling asleep in your arms every night." Relief flooded through me like a tidal wave, washing away the last remnants of my doubts and insecurities. At that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that Emily was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, come what may. With a sense of purpose and determination, we began to make plans for the future, mapping out the logistics of Emily's move and envisioning the life we would build together. And as we embarked on this new chapter of our relationship, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the love that had brought us together and the bright future that lay ahead. With the decision made for Emily to move in with me, our days were filled with excitement and anticipation as we prepared for this new chapter in our lives. The morning of Emily's move was tinged with nervous energy as we packed her belongings into boxes, making careful plans for the transition to our shared home. "Are you sure about this, Emily?" I asked, my voice tinged with concern as I watched her carefully wrap a delicate porcelain figurine in bubble wrap. Moving in together is a big step, and I want to make sure you're comfortable with it. Emily smiled reassuringly, her eyes meeting mine with unwavering confidence. David, I've never been more sure about anything in my life. Living with you feels like the most natural thing in the world, like coming home after a long journey. Her words filled me with a sense of warmth and reassurance, dispelling any lingering doubts that might have clouded my mind. With a renewed sense of purpose, we continued to pack, our conversation drifting from plans for the future to fond memories of our time together. As we loaded the last of Emily's belongings into the moving van, a sense of excitement bubbled up within me, mingled with a touch of sadness at the thought of leaving her old life behind. Are you ready for this, Emily? I asked, reaching out to squeeze her hand in a silent gesture of support. She nodded, her eyes shining with determination. More than ready, David. I can't wait to start this new chapter of our lives together. With that, we set off toward our shared future, the open road stretching out before us like a blank canvas, waiting to be painted with the colors of our love and dreams. As we settled into our new home, the days passed in a blur of unpacking, decorating, and making plans for the future. Every corner of our shared space seemed to resonate with the echoes of our laughter and whispered conversations, filling the air with a palpable sense of joy and contentment. Can you believe we're finally here, Emily? I asked one evening as we sat together on the couch, savoring the quiet moments of togetherness. She smiled, her eyes sparkling with happiness. I pinch myself every day, David. This feels like a dream come true. As we looked ahead to the future, I knew with absolute certainty that there was nowhere else I'd rather be than by Emily's side, building our dreams together one moment at a time. As we settled into our new home, the days passed in a blur of unpacking, decorating, and making plans for the future. Every corner of our shared space seemed to resonate with the echoes of our laughter and whispered conversations, filling the air with a palpable sense of joy and contentment. Can you believe we're finally here, Emily? I asked one evening, as we sat together on the couch, savoring the quiet moments of togetherness. She smiled, her eyes sparkling with happiness. I pinch myself every day, David. This feels like a dream come true. As if sensing the unspoken words between us, Emily leaned in, her lips hovering just inches from mine. Without hesitation, I closed the distance between us, meeting her halfway in a tender kiss that spoke volumes of our shared love and commitment. As the days turned into weeks and the novelty of our new life together began to fade, Emily and I found ourselves confronted with the inevitable challenges that come with merging two lives into one. One evening, as we sat together at the kitchen table, the weight of our responsibilities seemed to press down on us like a heavy burden. Bills piled up on the counter, unanswered emails cluttered our inboxes, and the to-do list seemed to stretch on endlessly. I don't know about you, Emily, but I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, I admitted, running a hand through my hair in frustration. It seems like no matter how hard we try, there's always something else that needs to be done. Emily nodded in agreement, her brow furrowed in concentration. I know what you mean, David. It feels like we're constantly juggling a million different tasks, and no matter how much we accomplish, there's always more waiting for us. For a moment, we sat in silence, the weight of our worries hanging heavy in the air between us. But then, as if by silent agreement, we both let out a simultaneous sigh and turned to face each other with determination in our eyes. We can't let ourselves get overwhelmed by all of this, Emily, I said, reaching out to take her hand in mine. We're in this together, and together, we can overcome anything. Emily's eyes softened, and she squeezed my hand in a silent gesture of solidarity. You're right, David. We may not have all the answers right now, but as long as we face our challenges together, I know we'll find a way through. Just then, a familiar tension seemed to brew between us, fueled by the stress of our situation. Words that had been left unsaid bubbled to the surface, threatening to boil over into a full-blown argument. I just wish you would communicate with me more, David, Emily blurted out, her frustration evident in her tone. It feels like you're keeping things from me, and it's driving me crazy. Caught off guard by her accusation, I felt my temper flare in response. And what about you, Emily? You're always so focused on your problems that you don't even notice when I need your support. For a moment, we stared at each other, our emotions roiling beneath the surface, like a storm waiting to break. But then, just as quickly as it had begun, the tension dissipated, replaced by a sense of remorse and understanding. "I'm sorry, Emily," I said, the words tumbling out in a rush of contrition. "I didn't mean to shut you out. I guess I've just been so caught up in trying to keep everything together that I didn't realize how much I was pushing you away." Emily's expression softened, and she reached out to gently caress my cheek. "I'm sorry too, David. I know I haven't been the most supportive partner lately, and I promise to do better." With our differences set aside, we embraced each other in a silent gesture of reconciliation, the tension between us melting away like snow under the warmth of the sun. As our days settled into a rhythm of shared responsibilities and mutual support, Emily's passion for historical fencing continued to burn brightly. Despite the challenges we faced, she remained steadfast in her dedication to the sport that had brought us together. One evening, as we sat together in the cozy confines of our living room, Emily broached the subject of an upcoming tournament with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "David, I have something I need to tell you," she began, her voice tinged with nervous anticipation. I looked up from my book, curiosity piqued by the earnestness in her tone. "What is it, Emily? You can tell me anything." She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts before continuing. "There's a historical fencing tournament coming up next month, and I've been invited to participate." The news came as both a surprise and a revelation, filling me with a mix of pride and apprehension. "That's incredible, Emily. I had no idea you were considering competing again. Are you sure you're ready for something like this?" Emily nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "I've been training hard for months, David. And besides, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to put my skills to the test in a real competition." I couldn't help but feel a twinge of anxiety at the thought of Emily stepping back into the ring, knowing full well the risks and challenges that awaited her. But even as my concerns swirled in my mind, I knew that I couldn't stand in the way of her dreams. "That's amazing, Emily. I'm so proud of you," I said, reaching out to take her hand in mine. "Whatever happens at the tournament, just know that I'll be there to support you every step of the way." A smile spread across Emily's face, banishing the shadows of doubt that had clouded her expression. "Thank you, David. That means more to me than you'll ever know." And so, with the date of the tournament drawing ever closer, Emily threw herself into her training with renewed vigor and determination, fueled by the knowledge that she had my unwavering support behind her. As the day of the tournament dawned bright and clear, I stood at Emily's side, watching with bated breath as she stepped onto the field of competition, her foil glinting in the sunlight. With each deft movement, she seemed to defy gravity, her skill and precision a testament to the countless hours she had devoted to her craft. As the final blow landed, signaling Emily's victory, a swell of pride surged within me, filling my heart to overflowing. At that moment, as Emily stood victorious amidst the cheers of the crowd, I knew with absolute certainty that no matter where life's journey took us, we would face it together, hand in hand, bound by the unbreakable bond of our love. However, the tournament was not just a one-day affair. Emily had to travel alone for 2 weeks to participate in various matches and events leading up to the final competition. As she bid me farewell at the airport, I couldn't shake the mix of pride and worry that swirled within me. Watching her disappear into the crowd, I knew that the next 2 weeks would be filled with longing and anticipation for her safe return. But I also knew that Emily was a force to be reckoned with, and I had every confidence that she would return triumphant. As Emily's tournament drew to a close and she returned home victorious, our lives resumed their familiar rhythm, filled with shared laughter, quiet moments of intimacy, and the comforting routine of everyday life. Yet despite the joy of Emily's triumph, a shadow lingered in the recesses of my heart, a gnawing sense of jealousy that I couldn't seem to shake. One evening, as I scrolled absent-mindedly through my social media feed, a photo caught my eye. Emily standing arm in arm with a fellow fencer, their smiles bright and their camaraderie evident. A pang of jealousy shot through me like a bolt of lightning, catching me off guard with its intensity. At that moment, irrational fears and insecurities bubbled to the surface, threatening to engulf me in a tidal wave of doubt. "Who's that?" I blurted out, unable to keep the accusation from creeping into my voice as I thrust the phone towards Emily. She looked up from her book, confusion furrowing her brow as she followed my gaze to the screen. "Oh, that's just Tom," He's one of my fellow fencers from the tournament. Her response did little to assuage the storm of emotions raging within me, and before I could stop myself, words spilled from my lips in a torrent of frustration and jealousy. "I don't like the way he's looking at you, Emily," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "And I don't like the way you're smiling at him." Emily's eyes widened in surprise, hurt flickering briefly across her features before being replaced by a steely resolve. "David, you're being ridiculous. Tom is just a friend, nothing more." But try as she might to reassure me, the seed of doubt had already been planted, festering in the fertile soil of my imagination and poisoning the wellspring of our love with its toxic tendrils. For days, the tension between us simmered just beneath the surface, each passing moment fraught with unspoken accusations and thinly veiled resentment. But then, as the weight of my jealousy threatened to suffocate me, a quiet voice of reason whispered in the depths of my soul, a reminder of the unwavering trust and love that had brought Emily and me together in the first place. With a heavy heart, I sought out Emily, the words tumbling from my lips in a rush of contrition and remorse. "I'm sorry, Emily. I let my jealousy get the best of me, and I know I have no right to question your loyalty or your friendship with Tom." Emily's eyes softened, and she reached out to gently caress my cheek. "It's okay, David. We all have our moments of insecurity. What's important is that we face them together, with honesty and understanding." As the days passed and the wounds of our recent conflict began to heal, Emily and I found solace in the simple pleasures of everyday life: shared meals, quiet walks in the park, and stolen moments of intimacy that reminded us of the depth of our love. Yet, despite the comfort of our routine, a sense of restlessness lingered in the air between us, a silent longing for adventure and spontaneity that begged to be sated. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, the soft glow of candlelight casting flickering shadows across the room, Emily turned to me with a mischievous twinkle in her eye. "David, I have an idea," she began, her voice filled with excitement. I looked up from my book, curiosity piqued by her sudden enthusiasm. "What is it, Emily? You have my full attention." She leaned in closer, her breath warm against my ear as she whispered her plan into the quiet stillness of the room. "I was thinking, why don't we go on a romantic journey together, just the two of us, exploring new places and making memories that will last a lifetime?" A thrill of excitement coursed through me at the thought of embarking on such an adventure with Emily by my side. "A romantic journey? That sounds incredible. Where do you want to go?" Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement as she launched into her vision for our trip. "Well, I was thinking we could start by exploring the winding streets of Florence, wandering hand in hand through the cobblestone alleys and savoring the taste of gelato under the Tuscan sun." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself caught up in the magic of her words. "And then what?" I prompted, eager to hear more. "From there, we could journey to the sun-drenched shores of Santorini, where we'll watch the sunset over the sparkling Aegean Sea and lose ourselves in the beauty of the island's whitewashed villages," Emily continued, her voice filled with excitement. I couldn't help but smile at the thought of sharing such breathtaking experiences with Emily, my heart swelling with anticipation for the adventures that lay ahead. "And after that?" I asked, unable to resist the urge to prolong the fantasy for just a little while longer. Emily's smile widened, her eyes dancing with mischief. "Well, who knows? Maybe we'll hop on a plane to Paris and indulge in croissants and café au lait at a sidewalk cafe. Or perhaps we'll venture off the beaten path and discover hidden gems in quaint villages nestled in the French countryside." With each new destination, our imaginations soared to greater heights, fueled by the promise of new experiences and the thrill of exploring the world together. Our romantic journey began with a flurry of excitement and anticipation as Emily and I set off to explore the enchanting streets of Florence, Italy. The air was alive with the scent of freshly baked bread and the distant strains of music drifting from open windows, and as we wandered hand in hand through the cobblestone alleys, it felt as though we had stepped into a dream. Each day brought new adventures and discoveries, from savoring the rich flavors of homemade pasta in quaint trattorias to marveling at the breathtaking beauty of Michelangelo's David in the Galleria dell'Accademia. As we walked along the Arno River, Emily's hand in mine, she turned to me with a radiant smile. "David, isn't this just perfect? I feel like I'm living in a fairy tale." I couldn't help but agree, my heart swelling with love and gratitude for the woman by my side. It's even better than a fairy tale, Emily. It's real and it's ours. From Florence, we journeyed to the sun-drenched shores of Santorini, where the whitewashed buildings and azure waters seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly beauty. Hand in hand, we explored the winding streets of Uya, losing ourselves in the labyrinthine alleys and stumbling upon hidden gems at every turn. As we watched the sunset from a secluded cliffside, Emily nestled in my arms, her head resting against my chest. "I never want this moment to end," she whispered, her voice filled with awe and wonder. "Neither do I, Emily," I replied, pressing a tender kiss to the top of her head. "But even when the sun sets, our love will continue to shine bright." And it was during a sudden summer shower that our love truly blossomed, as we sought shelter beneath a canopy of blooming bougainvillea and found ourselves caught in a tender embrace. With the rain pouring down around us, we shared our deepest hopes and fears, our laughter mingling with the soft patter of raindrops on the cobblestones. "I love you, Emily," I murmured, my heart overflowing with emotion. "I love you too, David," she replied, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. "More than words can say." From Santorini, we traveled to Paris, the city of love, where we wandered hand in hand along the banks of the Seine, stealing kisses beneath the iconic Eiffel Tower and sipping champagne at sidewalk cafes as the world rushed by in a blur of color and light. But it was during a late-night stroll along the banks of the river that our journey reached its pinnacle, as we danced together in the soft glow of streetlights, our hearts beating as one to the rhythm of our love. And as the final notes of our romantic journey echoed through the night, I knew with absolute certainty that no matter where life's winding path may lead us, we would face it together, hand in hand, bound by the unbreakable bond of our love. In the romantic ambience of Paris, amidst the enchanting melodies of the city and the soft glow of streetlights, I found the perfect moment to pour out my heart to Emily. With trembling hands and a love that burned brighter than the stars above, I dropped to one knee and presented her with a ring, asking her to spend forever by my side as my wife. As tears of joy glistened in her eyes and she whispered a resounding, "Yes," I knew that our journey was only just beginning, filled with endless possibilities and boundless love. As the sun set on our romantic journey through Europe, Emily and I returned home with hearts full of love and memories that would last a lifetime. But even as we settled back into the familiar routines of everyday life, a sense of excitement and anticipation hung in the air, as if the world itself was brimming with possibility. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, sipping tea and watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, Emily turned to me with a smile. "David, do you ever think about our future?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. I looked at her, surprised by the sudden turn in conversation. "Of course, Emily. I think about it all the time. Why do you ask?" She took a deep breath, her gaze steady as she met my eyes. "Well, I was thinking, now that we're back home and our journey together has come to an end, maybe it's time for us to start planning the next chapter of our lives." The words hung in the air between us, pregnant with possibility and promise. For a moment, I felt a rush of excitement mingled with apprehension as I considered the implications of Emily's suggestion. "What do you mean, Emily?" I asked, unable to keep the uncertainty from creeping into my voice. She reached out to take my hand in hers, her touch warm and reassuring. "I mean, maybe it's time for us to start thinking about our future together, about building a life and a family of our own." Her words hit me like a bolt of lightning, sparking a flurry of emotions that swirled within me like a tempest. But even as doubt and fear threatened to consume me, I knew deep down that Emily was right, that our love was strong enough to weather any storm, and that together we could conquer whatever challenges lay ahead. "I love you, Emily," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "and I want nothing more than to spend the rest of my life with you." Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she threw her arms around me, holding me close as if afraid that I might disappear if she let go. "I love you too, David," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "More than anything in this world." With a trembling smile, Emily looked up at me, her eyes shining with excitement. "David, let's get married. Let's start planning our wedding and our future together." A surge of joy flooded through me at her words, and I couldn't help but return her smile with one of my own. "Yes, Emily, let's do it. Let's plan the most beautiful wedding the world has ever seen." With the decision to embark on the journey of marriage made, Emily and I dove headfirst into the whirlwind of wedding preparations. From choosing the perfect venue to selecting the most exquisite flowers, every detail was meticulously planned with love and care. One afternoon, as we sat at the kitchen table with a stack of bridal magazines spread out before us, Emily let out a frustrated sigh, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I just can't seem to find the right dress," she confessed, flipping through the pages with growing agitation. I reached out to gently squeeze her hand, offering a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, Emily. The perfect dress is out there, I'm sure of it. We just have to keep looking." Emily returned my smile, her eyes softening with gratitude. "Thank you, David. I don't know what I'd do without you by my side." As the weeks turned into months, we found ourselves immersed in a whirlwind of decisions and preparations, each one bringing us closer to the moment when we would finally say, "I do." One evening, as we sat together in the cozy confines of our living room, surrounded by stacks of wedding invitations and RSVP cards, Emily turned to me with a mischievous glint in her eye. "Do you think anyone will notice if we sneak away for a midnight snack?" she asked, her voice filled with playful anticipation. I chuckled at her suggestion, the stress of wedding planning momentarily forgotten in the warmth of her smile. "I think we can risk it," I replied, rising from my seat to join her in the kitchen. With a shared glance and a knowing smile, we tiptoed through the darkened house, hand in hand, our laughter echoing through the quiet night. As the big day drew closer, our excitement reached a fever pitch, tinged with a hint of nervous anticipation for the journey that lay ahead. The morning of our wedding dawned bright and clear, the air alive with the promise of new beginnings. As I stood at the altar, waiting for Emily to make her grand entrance, my heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Moments before Emily's entrance, my best man, Alex, clapped a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You ready for this, mate?" he asked, a grin spreading across his face. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the fluttering in my chest. "I think so," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex chuckled, giving me a knowing look. "You'll be fine, David. Just remember to breathe." But as soon as I caught sight of her walking down the aisle, radiant in her wedding gown, all doubts and fears melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. As Emily approached, her eyes locked with mine, and I could see the love shining in her gaze, a reflection of the emotion swirling within my own heart. "You look stunning, Emily," I whispered as she reached my side, her hand fitting perfectly into mine. A blush tinged her cheeks as she smiled up at me. "Thank you, David. You don't look too bad yourself," she teased, her voice barely above a whisper. As we exchanged vows beneath the canopy of a sprawling oak tree, surrounded by our closest friends and family, I felt as though the world had stopped spinning just for us, frozen in a moment of pure, unadulterated bliss. "I promise to love you unconditionally, to support you in all your endeavors, and to cherish every moment we share," I vowed, my voice steady despite the emotions swirling within me. "And I promise to stand by your side, to laugh with you in times of joy, and to hold you close in times of sorrow," Emily vowed, her voice soft but resolute. As we sealed our vows with a tender kiss, I knew with absolute certainty that our love was eternal, a beacon of hope and joy that would light our way through the darkest of nights. The reception that followed was a whirlwind of laughter and tears, as friends and family toasted our love and shared stories of our journey. And as we danced beneath the stars, lost in each other's arms, I knew that this was just the beginning of our happily ever after. As the night drew to a close and the last of our guests bid us farewell, Emily and I found ourselves alone at last, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the starlit sky. "I love you, Emily," I whispered, my voice barely above a whisper. "With all my heart and soul." Emily smiled, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. "And I love you, David, forever and always." And as we stood together beneath the velvet canopy of the night, hand in hand, I knew with absolute certainty that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, bound by the unbreakable bond of our love. For our love was a flame that could never be extinguished, a beacon of hope and joy that would light our way through the darkest of nights, guiding us home to each other, time and time again. And in that moment, As we embraced beneath the stars, I knew that our love would endure for all eternity, a testament to the power of true love in a world filled with uncertainty and doubt.